When I was young, if I'm remembering correctly, 10, I got a rock tumbler for my birthday. And you thought I was exaggerating all those times that I said I was a nerdy kid. If you're not familiar with rock tumblers, it's basically a container that you put some rocks and grit into along with some water. Then you place the container, which looks a lot like a small drum turned on its side, on its stand, and a motor causes the entire thing to slowly spin. The basic idea is that the rocks tumble in the grit and it gradually smooths them. Then you take them out, wash them off, and put them back in again with a finer grit. And then you repeat it with an even finer grit before eventually switching to a polishing compound. Each step takes about a week. It's a long, slow process. We were only on step 1, the rough grit, that does most of the smoothing, for about a day when I started asking if we could check on the rocks. My father told me that it was important to follow the directions and let the tumbler do its job. Undaunted and unconvinced, I continued pleading to no avail. My father simply reiterated the importance of following the directions. The next day, when no one was around, I went down into our basement to my rock tumbler. I opened the container and dumped everything out into the sink to look at my rocks. They didn't look any different than they went in. The problem was, when I dumped out the rocks, all of the grit went down the drain and I couldn't put everything back into the tumbler. My 10-year-old solution was simply to move on to the next stage. And I did this again a couple days later. As a matter of fact, I did this with every single grit. A process that should have taken more than a month, I was able to accomplish in just 2 short weeks. Of course, as I'm sure you can guess, my rocks didn't wind up smooth, let alone polished and shiny. I found out too late that my father was right when he said that it was important to follow the directions and let the tumbler do its job. This past Sunday, our Bible verse for the children's sermon came from the 1st chapter in Proverbs, where Solomon said these words, "Listen, my son, to your father's instruction, and do not forsake your mother's teaching." My rocks would have turned out a lot better had I followed the wisdom of that verse. As a matter of fact, a lot of things in my life would have turned out better had I heeded my father's instructions and held to my mother's teachings. I'm thankful for my parents who did their best to bring me up in the care and the instruction of the Lord. Not everybody had that opportunity. But God relates to us as a perfect Father and promises to direct us even when our earthly parents fail. He provides His Holy Spirit to give us guidance and instruction, and we would do well to listen.